Terry Rooney, the recruiting coordinator at LSU, calls me, and he's like, "Hey, big man, what's going on?" Acting like nothing's been up, that he hadn't talked to me in a month and a half. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, "What's up, coach?" "Yeah, I haven't heard from you. Like, I already got my visits. I've knocked off LSU off the list. Like, why are you calling me? And he's like, "What? Are you kidding me? You knocked LSU off the list, the 5-time national champion, #1 college." He listed off his recruiting stuff, and I'm like, "I did, coach. You didn't talk to me for a month. What's going on? Did you sign all your players?" Like, kind of like giving him a little crap. And he's like, "You know what?" He's like, how can you not take a visit?" Anyway, he hustled me into a visit, and I came down on a visit on a Thursday. I didn't even go to a football game, nothing. I came down on a Thursday. We went to dinner. I landed at like 12 or 1 in the morning. We went to IHOP at 2 in the morning with Terry Rooney. I get up in the morning at Friday, go around campus, did all that stuff, and I was leaving early Saturday morning so I could be back for the Sunday christening or whatever. Saturday morning, I committed on the spot to Coach Manera. I didn't even go to Vanderbilt.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. We're here as usual in the Propel Production Podcast Studio in Baton Rouge, and we welcome our guest, Anthony Ranaudo. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And you killed the last name. You crushed it.
Yeah. Well,
that's hard to do.
I have a way of not crushing it.
Well, you got mine, so I'm appreciative. Thank you for having me. This is really cool. Thank you.
So Anthony is a serial entrepreneur and investor. You're host of the Up and In show, podcast, and a former Major League Baseball pitcher, collegiate All-American, and 2009 national champion with LSU, which is all just very exciting to me. I love it.
Yeah. Gassing me up. That was a good resume. Thanks for reading it like that.
Look, I'm a big LSU baseball fan. Yeah. Went to the College World Series 94, 95, 6, and 7. Caught 2 national championships. Yeah. And in Johnny Rosenblatt Stadium.
Unreal.
And just the best scene in baseball, man. I mean, all that talent, the 8 best teams.
Yep.
So looking forward.
And they love the LSU people there too. That's like it's like a home week for us there, 2 weeks or whatever. It was really cool. Yeah.
And one of my friends claims to be the mayor, during that week. Yeah. He's from LSU.
Yeah, I was gonna say if he's from LSU, they'll probably anoint him the mayor. They'll be happy that he's there. Yeah.
So, but you're a big social media guy and content creator, and we got a lot to dig into all the different things that you do. But you're all over Twitter. You crush Twitter, man. You
know what's funny is I don't think I used Twitter for about a year and a half too until I got back into cryptocurrency and NFTs and things like that. And crypto is huge, or Twitter is huge for crypto and NFTs. So that's what got me back into it.
Well, and it's interesting content. Like I can see that now.
Yeah.
And checking out your Twitter feed. It's just like it's engaging. Because of all of that stuff, you know?
It's a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm happy you said it's engaging because I get a little self-conscious, I guess, that people just scroll through it, when you put stuff out there like that, but appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. A lot of questions about some of the content that I don't totally understand, but what other forms of social media are you putting your product out on?
Yep. So I'm big on Instagram and Twitter. Those are my 2 main ones. I'm on LinkedIn too, but I've kind of fallen off the last couple months there. And I hate to say this, but I'm diving into TikTok. I'm learning.
It is.
I believe,
the thing, right?
yeah, and we're on YouTube too. We do podcasting and things like that, streaming services. So I believe that TikTok is potentially maybe like a new version of YouTube, where the same way that maybe you and I or go to YouTube to learn something or a how-to video, I think that the attention span and the things that we want, the information quicker, TikTok's going to be that new thing. How do I tie a tie really quick, and it's a 15-second thing, boom, 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 cool, let me try it, or you just watch it on loop really quick 3-4 times in a row and you're like, oh, okay, now I can do it.
No kidding.
That's my prediction.
Yeah.
But
I never really thought of it.
Yeah, I always think too, like Instagram, right when it first came out, it was all about filters, and Facebook was about statuses and things like that, and now we use it as dating apps and sharing all kinds of information and streaming and videos and stuff. So that's the way I think TikTok is. It started with dancing and it became, viral and things like that.
That's true with all of the social media platforms. I can remember even one of my guys started using texting. Now this is a long time ago. But my kids were texting.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he was using it for business. I was like, dude, little girls text,
right.
I mean, just pick up the phone or send an email.
Yep.
And I mean, now we use text for
exactly for everything. Yeah.
Everything's like everything changes like that, right?
Exactly.
So let's start talking about your baseball career. You played professionally for 8 years, and you're with 3 great organizations, right?
Yep. I got very lucky. 3 great organizations, 3 great cities. Yeah, I couldn't have. I guess I could have drawn it up better. I could have played better, but but it was still a great experience.
Boston Red Sox.
Yep.
Texas Rangers.
Yep.
And Chicago White Sox.
Yep.
So you're a right-hander?
Right-hander.
What were your pitches?
So when I was younger, my 4-seam fastball was my thing. I had that good backspin, kind of rode through the zone, and I would throw anywhere from 92 to 96, something like that, get up to 97, 98. But as I got older in my career, things changed, and I had some injuries and stuff, and my fingers kind of got on side of the ball, so my fastball wasn't as good, and I kind of relied on a curveball and mixing speeds and things like that. So
changeup.
Yeah, changeup. But honestly, the changeup is what cost me. I could never really develop a changeup, and that was kind of the thing that you needed. You needed 3-4 pitches to be a starter and be able to go through the lineup 2 or 3 times. And I just always really struggled with the changeup. So I think that was a big thing for me too.
So you had 2 strong pitches,
yeah.
and
2 strong pitches, but never could really develop that third one to get me the chance to stay up there in the big leagues as a major league starter. And I had great success in the minor leagues, AAA. I was AA, AAA pitcher of the year in each league coming up, and then I just got shelled in the major leagues. It was just a completely different ball game, and it was different.
Yeah, for sure. So let's take it back to when you started to play the game. You grew up in New Jersey.
Yep.
What did your New Jersey childhood look like?
A lot of basketball, actually. Yeah. So I grew up, it was big Italian New Jersey family, so a lot of family and tradition and things like that. And sports were big. And family was big. I watched more baseball than I did, but I loved basketball and I played it more. And my whole life I was always tall, so everybody was kind of grooming me to be a basketball player. Doctors were telling me I was going to be 7 foot, all that stuff, So.
And you're how tall?
6'7". So I was close. I was getting there, but I wound up stopping my sophomore year. Yeah, so I stopped at 6'7" my sophomore year, and I kind of
sophomore in high school. You're 6'7".
I came into freshman year 6'4" too. So I grew 5. I was tall. I was 5'11", 6 foot in 8th grade, which is tall. But then I grew 5 inches my freshman or going into that summer.
Oh,
so I came in 6'4", 6'5" as a freshman, and then grew a couple more inches and kind of stopped there.
So I mean, you had a pretty prolific high school basketball career, right?
I did. And I'm actually, it's one of those things that we talk about. It's funny, I played in the major leagues, but I don't really ever talk about my stats too much or anything or what I did. But high school basketball, I was actually really proud. I scored 1,500 points in New Jersey, which New Jersey high school basketball is really, really good. So for me, and basketball is my favorite sport. So it's one of those things that I'm like, don't forget that I played, type thing. So yeah, I had a good career. I think I almost had 1,000 rebounds. Yeah. Had some small D1 offers in New Jersey and the Northeast and stuff, but mainly I would have been a D2 basketball player. And I wanted to chase like a D1 big school dream and try to play professionally in something. So
man, you had options, right?
I had options. I was lucky. I was very lucky.
So, is it Freehold you grew up in?
So it was funny. My hometown is actually Jackson. I don't know why they always put Freehold on all of my stuff when I was a kid, but it's funny. Half of my street was Freehold, half of it was Jackson. So very similar.
And
very close.
Freeholds is like Bruce territory, right?
Yes,
I mean, he grew up there.
Yep, that's how everybody knows Freehold. That's where I was technically born. That's where the big hospital is in town. So I was born there, and that's why people put Freehold in. And obviously Bruce made it pretty well known.
So you grew up a Yankees fan?
I did. Die hard Yankees too.
Now, were you able to go to games?
All the time.
Really?
My dad took me all the time, and I mean, I probably went to 20 games as a kid with my dad and his friend. You know, like just my dad messed up his first marriage, and he was determined not to mess it up the second time. So I got very lucky, and he took me to a lot of games. I got to go to the stadium, the old stadium in the Bronx. It was so awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was full circle. And my senior year of high school, I actually got to do a tryout with the Yankees because they would, recruit local kids and do a workout to see if they're draft ready, all that stuff. So I got to pitch at the old Yankee Stadium. I took some dirt, put it in my pocket, kept it with me and everything. Yeah, it was awesome. And then got to pitch in the new Yankee Stadium, like in a game, against the Yankees. Yeah, it was cool.
So when did you start playing ball? I mean, you played baseball growing up as a kid, right?
Yeah, as much as I loved basketball, it was just where I grew up in New Jersey, it was more concrete, streets and stuff like that. So it was more basketball, stickball. If somebody had like a yard or a cul-de-sac, we'd play some wiffle ball and that kind of stuff. Right. But I was always playing by myself, throwing the ball against the wall ball, that stuff. Played t-ball and everything. But I really, like I said, I was just always good at baseball. It was just, I loved basketball more and wanted to be a basketball player.
And did you start pitching?
I was always, it was just like, it was one of those things that I was like a freak athlete, and I was bigger and stronger. So it was just like, go ahead and pitch. And I was just pitching, but I didn't have any training or anything like that, until I probably was 15 or 16, something like that.
I was going to ask you, who taught you how to pitch?
Yeah. My dad kind of just gave me the basics, but he didn't, I got to give my dad a lot of credit. He worked really hard for me, and he gave me a lot of opportunities. But when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old and he realized I was getting a lot better, he really stepped back and he let other people take the reins. So I give credit to my dad to, the form and like the basics and the foundation of a lot of stuff. But I also give him a lot of credit that he put me in hands of people that knew more than he did, which was always admirable to me. And I appreciated that I didn't have this like overbearing dad on me.
So you had a standout high school career in both sports.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And, I was curious. I mean, I think it's online. I read somewhere, maybe it quoted you. You grew up in a middle class family, right? You said it was a big family.
Yeah. So I grew up. I had 4 in my immediate family, but I have a half brother, half sister, and we're super tight. And then by my sophomore year of high school, they were already having kids and stuff. So I got nieces and nephews and all that stuff. And my dad's first wife, my brother and sister's mom, is like my second mom. We're all family. Like we're just very tight knit. And even my parents are divorced now, but we're all just very tight. Like we're just cool with each other, and there's just a lot of love there. So it felt big, but what the numbers probably weren't traditionally as big as everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I grew up and went to a Catholic school, and I'm one of 7.
Yeah.
But 7 and 8 kids was very common.
Wow.
And there was a family of 13, maybe 14.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, so some big Catholic families.
Yeah.
But so you actually, when you wrapped up your high school career, are you winning a state championship then?
So it was funny actually. My sophomore year, we won a state championship. I threw back-to-back no-hitters in the semifinals and then the finals, and we won
back to back.
Yeah, and that kind of set off my baseball career. That's when, so I was a sophomore. I was 15 years old, but I was 6'7", and I just played varsity and did really well as a basketball player. So everybody's like, whispering about maybe being a D1 basketball player from New Jersey. But then I came out my sophomore year and I'm throwing 85, 86, and I threw 2 no hitters, and
That's
people were hyping me. So I kind of that summer went to go get some formal training for the first time. My velocity went up, and that's when everything changed for me after baseball. It was like, this kid's going to be a first rounder in baseball type thing.
So you were actually drafted out of high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You passed it up?
I did. I was actually called in the 3rd round, but they were trying to lowball me. They were trying to like leverage the high round pick. I was probably realistically a 10 to 15 rounder, type thing out of high school. But they were trying to say, hey, look, we'll pick you in the 3rd round, but you got to take this amount of money or whatever. And I didn't want to do that. So I said no. And then the Rangers drafted me in the 11th round. and they offered me similar to what that team offered me, but and then the last day, I was no joke, had my pickup truck packed, driving down to Louisiana. My dad's in the truck with me, and the Rangers called and they offered me my number that I wanted. And we were in the driveway, and I looked at my dad and I was like, "We're done, right? We're already going to LSU?" And he was like, "Yep." And we just kept rolling. And I said, I turned down 500,000, or it was like 450,000, but I wanted 500. That was my number out of high school, and they came up at 450. And I looked at Dad and I was like, "All right, we're going to LSU, right?" And he was like, "Yep." He's like, "Let's double it up."
Oh my!
So doubled down, bet on myself, and came down to school. And
I mean, look, but I mean, that's a lot of money.
Whew. And coming from my family, like I would say we were middle class, because on average, my life we were middle class. Early in my life, we were not. We were below average, right? And my dad was just a grinder. He worked really hard, and he had an insurance. This is where I think I learned entrepreneurship. I have vivid memories of being 5 or 6 years old, and my dad had an insurance agency, or he was working for Prudential, right? And he hadn't had an office. He was just a grinder, and so my dad would go to work all day, and then he'd come home, we'd eat dinner, and then my mom and him would go down to this little basement in the garage or whatever, and they would just call people all night, and I would just sit on the floor and play while they called people. And then my dad would be like, "Hey, somebody answered, I gotta go," and he would just leave at 8:30 to go, because you can't, there's no paperwork back then. He would just have to go shake hands, meet them, talk to them, get their information, all that stuff, and try to close deals. And so I always just respected that, and I think that's what honestly like set the tone for me to be an entrepreneur later on in my life too.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me, like, I read that you'd come from a middle class background, and like how difficult that must be to turn away that kind of money at that age, because you could go to LSU and get hurt, right?
Exactly.
And you see that a lot throughout the years, but for many people, that signing bonus can be completely life-changing. And
I think I got lucky too, that my dad grinded hard, made his money, and then the perspective was there, right? He finally could feel that, this is a lot of money, but if you do what you're supposed to do, like we can go down and double down and do better, and we didn't need the money at that time, whereas maybe 5 years earlier, it would have been a different story. And he was like, "Hey, we need this money," type thing. And so it's different for every family.
So how did you end up at LSU? I mean, you were recruited, I imagine, by a number of schools. Yeah,
it was my LSU story is really funny too, because the way it went back then was they couldn't, there was no cell phones the way they can text right now. I did have a phone, but it was just different. So July 1st, all the colleges can call you for the first time after your junior year. So they all started calling me that day. I got all my, things in order. LSU called me on the first day. I had a call. Developed a relationship with them for about a month. But the way that it goes is you kind of talk to them July and August, and then when school starts back up at the colleges, you go on your official visits, right? In the fall for baseball players, you go and watch a football game. They take you around campus, all that stuff. But LSU had kind of ghosted me for like the month leading up to it. I assumed they signed all their pitchers and things like that, and I was an out-of-state pitcher, so I kind of just put them out of my head. And my last 3 schools that I wanted to go to were Virginia, Alabama, and Vanderbilt. I had visited Virginia already. They made me an offer, but it wasn't what I wanted, and it was an expensive school. Alabama offered me almost a full scholarship, and I loved the campus, but they weren't great at school, and I really wanted to go to Vanderbilt. And that's why I saved it for my last visit. And in between my Alabama and my Vanderbilt visit, they were just a week apart, or 2 weeks apart, because I couldn't go on a certain Saturday. Terry Rooney, the recruiting coordinator at LSU, calls me, and he's like, "Hey, big man, what's going on?" Acting like nothing's been up, that he hadn't talked to me in a month and a half. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, "What's up, coach?" "Yeah, I haven't heard from you. Like I already got my visits. I've knocked off LSU off the list. Like, why are you calling me? And he's like, "What? Are you kidding me? You knocked LSU off the list, and 5-time national champion, #1 college." He listed off his recruiting stuff, and I'm like, "I did, coach. You didn't talk to me for a month. What's going on? Did you sign all your players?" Like, kind of like giving him a little crap. And he's like, "You know what?" He's like, how can you not take a visit?" Anyway, he hustled me into a visit, and I came down on a visit on a Thursday. I didn't even go to a football game, nothing. I came down on a Thursday. We went to dinner. I landed at like 12 or 1 in the morning. We went to IHOP at 2 in the morning with Terry Rooney. I get up in the morning at Friday, go around campus, did all that stuff, and I was leaving early Saturday morning so I could be back for the Sunday christening or whatever. Saturday morning, I committed on the spot to Coach Manera. I didn't even go to Vanderbilt. Just committed on the spot. Looked at my dad that Friday morning in the hotel, and he was like, "How you feeling about this?" And I was like, "I'm going to say something crazy. I don't even want to go to Vanderbilt. I love this visit." And he was like, I won't forget, he his face got so ecstatic and it lit. Like he was like, I was thinking the same thing. He's like, we got to go tell him. And I was like, really? Because I thought he was going to be like, no, let's go to Vanderbilt, you know, like blah, blah, blah. Because my dad is very, you know, and he was like, no, let's go tell him. I feel it too. Let's do it. And so I went down. I told him on the spot. We committed right there. I didn't even go to Vanderbilt, nothing. I just came here and I was like, I knew I wanted to be here. I was on campus and I was like, this is home.
That is fantastic. Yeah. And it turned out great, right?
It did. I'm very lucky. I mean, that's why I'm able to have this conversation with you right now, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's been a great journey. I love Baton Rouge. Louisiana has embraced the New Jersey kid, and yeah, it's home for me now.
Yeah, I found it interesting because you're from New Jersey. You come down here, and you know, not even thinking you were going to go to college here. You stay. You go about your career, and then you end up back here. So
it's crazy.
There's something about Baton Rouge that got you.
It's the people, man. It's the way that. I grew up in Jersey, and people are just a little different. They're brash, they're quick. Everything is in a hurry, right? Yeah. And I like the people here. They've embraced me from day one. It took me a little time to warm up because when I got down here from New Jersey, if people are like, "Hey, come on, I just want to make you some food," you're like, "What do you want from me?" There's something attached to this, you know. Like people aren't that nice here. Yeah. So it did take me some time to get used to everybody, but that's what I love, and I think this is more my type of people where open door policy, come on in, let's do some stuff, let's all hang out, you know, type thing versus. New Jersey is not like that.
Yeah, very cool, man. Yeah. Love that. All right, let's take a quick break, Anthony, get in a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. We would like to thank Modus for their support of the Next Entrepreneur Podcast. Who is Modus? Modus is a facility services company that works in the e-commerce fulfillment industry across the United States. What do? They like to say they take it from the conveyor to the dock door. What does that mean? It means that they're building the pick stations with the cable management. They're installing guardrails and bollards. They're putting down floor marking. They're putting up aerial signage. These guys build fencing systems, shelving systems, and racking systems. They also do rack recovery for when there's rack failures. They also install dock levelers and dock doors. Modus also installs ASRS systems, which is automated storage and retrieval systems, as well as other robotics projects. They've worked for the largest e-commerce retailers in the world, and they can work for you. If you need to find Modus, you can reach them online at modusmoves.com. And we are back with Anthony Ranaudo. So you guys, your sophomore year, went to the College World Series. How'd that turn out for you?
Yeah, pretty well. We did. We wound up staying out there 2.5 weeks, which means we got to stay to the final series. Yeah, and we took 2 out of 3 against Texas and became the national champs. And everything that I came down here for, everything that, you know, like when you're a kid and you show up on campus that they're not promising you, but they're coaching you up to do and accomplish. Yeah. It was all done. It was really cool.
So my home is in Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Here. Yeah. And so LSU I've graduated from LSU. LSU's number one in my book. But that was a perfect series for me because, you know, when we first moved to Austin, UT football team went all the way. We had left Baton Rouge and we'd won a national championship there in 2004. And then UT won it in 2005. Yep. And Colt McCoy's playing. No, that was
say his name.
That was not Colt McCoy. That was whose name is just totally slipped my mind.
I can see his face too.
Me too. I can see his name on the restaurant. Yep. I can't say it. But anyway, then after Colt McCoy came in. He was so fun to watch for 4 years. You know, so UT, we started watching a lot of UT sports. So when LSU and UT ended up in the College World Series final, it was very exciting. But that was tough. I remember players were just dropping like flies, for cramping up the heat, and after playing out there for 2.5 weeks. But you guys came out on top.
It was so wild. The weather, and to think that in Omaha, Nebraska was the hottest weather that I played in my career, you know, and even we were Louisiana kids. We've been playing in Baton Rouge all year, you know, to go somewhere we thought we would have been fine. But the weather was crazy, but it wound up, you know, it worked out. The weather worked out. I mean, we battled through it, but I'll never forget Mikey Maltek having IVs in his arm. And so Coach Maneri and I, in the last game, actually every single inning would go into the locker room. I'd take my jersey off, put it in the dryer to try to get it somewhat dry because I was just drenched through my uniform. Coach Maneri's laying down on the table and they're giving him like salt things really? To make sure his solution, like his pH levels are all good and everything. It was crazy, but yeah, wound up winning and taking home the thing. It was awesome. It was a dream come true, honestly.
Yeah, that is the best stuff. So your following year, you'd have been a junior, 2010, right?
Yeah.
You had some injuries that year?
Yeah, it was, and it's as much as it was an interesting year. So we won the national championship. I was one of the top pitchers in the country that year. So obviously coming back, it was the perfect recipe to hype me up and do all that stuff. I was literally Golden Spikes preseason player of the year, preseason pitcher of the year, college player of the year, #1 overall pick. This was like all that stuff, right, going into that year. And yeah, it just didn't turn out that way. I wound up, everything was good in the fall, but I could kind of feel like my velocity wasn't normal. And then I remember it was the last start that I had before opening weekend. I threw a pitch and I was like, man, my elbow felt a little weird. And then the next morning I woke up and I tried to lift my arm and I couldn't even lift my arm. And it was all pain on the outside of my elbow. And I was like, oh, this is weird. And just kind of shook it off and like whatever, like the next couple of days. And then opening night, it bothered me a lot. And I wound up pitching 5 innings, but the next day was even worse than that first time. So that was the time that I wound up taking like 6 or 8 weeks off. And, I was sliding down the draft polls and all that stuff with injuries and everything. And I tried to rush back too quick. We were actually the #1 team in the country. We were playing so well. And I wanted to get out there, with my guys and all that stuff. And obviously pitch in front of scouts and all that stuff. And I came back too soon, and I put the team honestly in jeopardy. I wasn't myself. I wasn't good, and we were trying to force me to be the guy, that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, so it kind of ruined our season a little bit. We wound up going to a regional, but we lost in the regional against UCLA. So it wasn't the year that we wanted, but it worked out and had friends for life and great relationship with Coach Maneri and all that stuff. So,
but you did get drafted at the end of that season.
I did. Yep. I got drafted in the first round, the supplemental first round, by the Boston Red Sox. Yep.
And so now there's some real money at stake.
Right.
And walk us through what that experience is like. And #1 to be drafted, but #2 to have reached that point in your life, and have someone verify it with a check.
It's funny because my draft story, and I can look back on this at 32 and be like, wow, what an arrogant kid I was, right? But draft day, we lost to UCLA in the regional, so we were traveling back to Baton Rouge, and we were going through the airport, and Scott Boras, my agent, is calling me, and he's like, hey, we got this, I just want to let you know, I really want to get you to the Red Sox or the Yankees, so I'm going to because I want to get you your money that you deserve. So I was hurt, and a lot of teams were nervous to pay me the money that I was supposed to get before the season, right? So his strategy was, I know 2 teams that will pay you if you're healthy, but we can't let anybody else take a flyer on you until the 39th pick, right? The White Sox called at pick 13, and they wanted to offer me $1.1 million. And as a 19-year-old kid, I'm in the airport, and I'm like, Scott, are you sure we shouldn't take this? How should we not take this? And he's like, if you trust me, we are not going to take this deal. If you trust me, if you want to get your $3 million, you're not going to take this deal. And I was like, I started crying in the airport. I walked away from all my teammates and I started crying. I didn't know what to do. I'm watching the thing on the TV. I'm planning my name to be drafted and all this stuff. And it was my ego, honestly, because I knew we were getting on the plane and I wanted to see my name get called on the TV. Swear to God, I called my dad and I'm like, Dad, how are we not going to take this? He's like, this is why we pay the man. This is why you hired the man. This is an emotional decision. Listen to the man. It's okay. So I got on the plane and I was trying to hold it together, but I remember crying and getting on the plane and then sitting in the back of the plane, and we landed and everybody just turned around and was like, let's go Red Sox, Red Sox. And so I just turned my phone on, and that's how I found out I got drafted.
Oh, that was so cool.
So it was cool and it was amazing. I got off the plane, called everybody and stuff, but not the traditional draft story.
So once you're drafted, unless you're just a superhero and you go straight to the show, you're going through the minor, you're going through the organization, right?
Yep.
So, which was your story,
yep,
right? But we see that in the movies, and the long bus rides and the cheesy hotels. What is it like? What was your experience?
Well, the minor league, first of all, the signing process was really weird. I had to go to Cape Cod. I wasn't even sure if I was going to sign too. Like I was a first rounder, but Scott even convinced me a little bit like, no, you're going back for your senior year at LSU, because he wanted to create leverage for the Red Sox to make them think that I wasn't going to sign, right? So I went to Cape Cod. I actually pitched 30 scoreless innings. I was supposed to start the All-Star game, and Scott's like, we're going to pull the best move. You're not going to start the All-Star game. I'm going to pull you out. You're going to go home and you're just going to hang out and you're going to sit on your 30 scoreless innings and you're going to make the Red Sox pay you because, you know, the fans are all pressured. They've all watched you all summer and you're killing it and all this stuff. And I was like, all right. So I went home and I just sat at home for another month, and the Red Sox just kept calling and offering more and more and more and more. Oh. The first offer was $1 million. The next one was 125, 15, 175, and then literally nothing until the second that I signed, and they offered 2.55, and that's what I wound up signing for and coming to terms on. But it was crazy because you're the big. Huge. It was a really cool way to go about it. But I say that because the minor league experience is shaped by your signing bonus, and that's important to say, because in a world of, I got sent to Lowell, Massachusetts, which was short season ball, and immediately it is exactly what you said. I was staying in UMass Lowell dorms, so I was sharing it with two other guys. We're sharing a college dorm. I didn't even do it at LSU. I was walking to a field that I didn't even know where to, and people are just coming up and asking for autographs and like prospect things, and I'm just like, what is going on? The changing room was in the outfield. We had to walk across the field to get to the dugout. It was the most unprofessional thing that I've ever seen, and I was like, this is what professional baseball is. And I say the signing bonus is important because most of those guys sign for pennies almost, and then right. if you know about minor league baseball, it's like minimum wage. It's way less than minimum wage. You make about $12,000, $10,000 to $12,000 for the 6 or 7 months, and you're at the field from 12 to 12 pretty much every single day. So if you do the hours, it is 100% minimum wage. And then when you finish your game at 11:30, you guys all shower up in the locker room, and then you get on this tiny bus where you're doubled up with somebody. I'm sitting next to another 6'5" pitcher, and we got to travel 7 hours through the night.
That's insane.
You get there at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you check into your hotel, your motel pretty much in the minor leagues, with your roommate, and you try to get a few hours of sleep, and then you get up at 10, 11, something like that. You get to the bus to the field, and you start it all over again.
That's crazy. And so there are multiple levels.
Yeah.
Right?
Every level gets a little bit better. Right. But it is, yeah. And I started at low A, or I went to short season ball. Then the next year I went to low A, and I was there for 2 months. And then I got a mid-season promotion, went to high A, finished the season there. And the next year I went to double A, got hurt that year. So I had to repeat it the next year. I went to double A. That year I did double A and triple A, and then made it to the major leagues, and kind of just major leagues, triple A after that.
So what's that like when you get the call to go to the show?
My story was really cool because, like we talked about earlier, I was a Yankee fan growing up, and Derek Jeter was my guy, all that stuff. And so the way that the stuff was going, I'd kind of known that if certain things, it was right around the trade deadline for the Red Sox. So I knew that if certain players got traded, I would have been next in line to pitch on Friday if John Lackey got traded. So it was all this stuff. I'm actually in AAA. You sit in the stands and you chart. So if I'm not pitching that day, 3 out of the days I have to be in street clothes and sit in the stands with fans and actually chart pitches. So right. I'm sitting in the stands and I'm on my phone watching the trade deadline on Twitter, and I'm like, and everybody's like, Lackey's deal's almost done. Lackey's deal's almost done. And I'm like sitting here and I'm just like, oh my God, come on. And then sure enough, he got traded, and I get the call from the GM as I'm sitting in the stands or whatever. So I get up and take the call and take it. And he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know, I'm sure you saw the John Lackey trade. So that's your start on Friday, man. He was like, New York Yankees Friday night at Fenway. Let's get it. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm in a ball crying right now. I immediately walked downstairs, and called my dad, because it was just like that moment of clarity, right? Like, dude, we did it. Everything you did, all the crazy stuff that people told you were crazy, like pushing, like he spent a lot of money and did a lot of stuff and went to a lot of tournaments, and my mom's family didn't understand it. She didn't have athletics, all that stuff. So he's missing Mother's Day, Father's Day, and they're like, hey, what is Angelo doing? He's wasting his money with the kid. Like, nobody makes it to the major leagues, like he's crazy. So it was cool for me to call and be like, dude, we did it. I'll see you Friday. Yeah, it was cool.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. That was a cool phone call.
So your childhood team, you're playing against.
Yes.
You're on the Red Sox, right? You're
Yep.
playing in Yankee Stadium.
Fenway.
In Fenway.
Yeah.
And but you're also playing against
my childhood idol.
Yeah.
I told you earlier, in my family, we would eat dinner, and then it would be like, hey, we got to wrap up because Jeter's playing. It would be like Yankee game starts at 7, and it would be like, come on, Jeter's up. It was like, make sure you're up for when Jeter gets up. Yeah. Like, make sure you're down here for when Jeter gets up to his at bat, So it was pretty surreal just to play against the Yankees, debut against them, the biggest rivalry in sports, my favorite rivalry growing up, Friday night game. I'm wearing my favorite Red Sox. We're wearing red Sox jerseys. It was so sick against like the gray. And sure enough, I walked my first major league batter, Brett Gardner, but shook off the nerves a little. And then Jeter was my next guy, and he bailed me out. I threw a first pitch fastball, and he just chopped it to second base. And I was just like, oh my God, thank God. Got my first out, just that first exhale and everything. And then I remember coming in after the inning, and one of my best friends taps my leg, and he's like, dude, Derek Jeter, first out. All right, not bad. And I was like, that is cool. 2 innings later, I struck him out, but it was like kind of a big part of the game, or like, fourth inning or something, and I needed the strikeout, and I didn't correlate that it was my first one of the game. And I got back in the dugout, and same guy comes up to me. He's like, oh, all right, so just getting him out wasn't good enough. You need to just strike him out as your first one too. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And it was a cool thing just to experience. And the video of my parents celebrating after I struck him out was everything to me. It was cool.
I was curious what that celebration looked like that night for you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny if you want to know what baseball is like and how much of a business it is. So I told you I got traded, or John Lackey got traded so I could make my start, but he got traded for somebody, right? And it was a major league pitcher. So I made my start and I won the game, and it was like everybody's celebrating. Everybody was pumped or whatever that I did well, and it was like then some guy taps me on the leg and he's like, hey, can you come meet John in the manager's room? And I'm like, no way they're going to send me back down to AAA right now. I went back in the locker room, and he was like, hey, man, that was awesome. I'm so proud of you. And he's like, we're going to get you back up here, but you got to go back down to Pawtucket tomorrow. And I was like, no, he said tonight. He's like, you got to go back down to Pawtucket tonight. And I was like, John, my family's here. They came from all over to come see me. And he's like, I know, man, I'm sorry. You just like, he's like, you can stay here tonight and everything. Like, you don't have to rush back tonight, but tomorrow morning, like, you got to report back to Pawtucket. And I was like, okay. So I was all pumped, and I'd go see my family, but I was like, inside, I'm like, I'm trying to like be nice to them and be pumped and all that stuff, but I'm just like,
what's the greatest moment of your life? And then you have
just shoot you down like real quick. But it was fun. I got to celebrate. We went out to dinner and did all that stuff, and my brother, my sister, their kids, my 2 best friends flew up from Baton Rouge, Bo Didier and Chris Matoulis. So I couldn't have asked for a better day. It was awesome.
That is insane. What a fantastic story. Yeah. So, but that's where you started with the Red Sox. You were. Then you ended up with the Rangers next? Yep, Rangers, and then traded to the White Sox. Man, my trade stories are crazy too. I feel like I could have so many crazy stories of how baseball is a business. Yeah, I asked you about, the minor league, the buses and the stuff. Similarly, in the movies, they show the guys getting traded. And like, boom, they're gone. And like and I always wondered, like, number one, is it exactly like that? I mean, like, how do you buy a place? How do you get out of your whatever, your house, your family, your kids, all that kind of stuff. But what is that like when you get traded? So the 2 times that I got traded was just crazy. So I was with the Red Sox, made my debut in 2014. I won my first 4 starts. It was like a rookie record, all this stuff. I'm like, the city's pumped about me being there, all that stuff. We had a winter like fundraiser up in Foxwoods, up in Connecticut, and they were like hyping me up. I'm on stage doing all these things, right? We fly back Sunday afternoon or whatever from that event. This is January 23rd, so spring training's in 2 weeks in February in Florida. I'm driving around Monday morning, and I get a call from the GM, like Ben Sherrington, on my car, and I'm with my friend. I'm like, what is that about? So I answer the call on speaker with my friend. He's been traded before. He goes, you're traded. And I was like, no. And I was like, no shot. And he was like, mm-hmm. And so Ben Sherrington, sure enough, he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know, we had to make some moves, and we think that this is the best one. So we traded for Robbie Ross for you. And so you're going to be a Texas Ranger now. And I was like, oh, all right. So I'll just cancel my apartment that I just paid 3 months for in Florida. I'll try to find another one in Arizona, and I got to be down there in a week. All right, cool. So that was my first trade, and I walked into a team that I didn't even know. But the second one is even more crazy. So I was with the Rangers, and I was in the major leagues, and I'm pitching against the Chicago White Sox. Derek Holland started the game, then we had a rain delay, and then it was like an hour-and-a-half rain delay, and they were like, Holland's going back out, don't worry. If you come in, we'll give you a clean inning because we know you're a starter, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? So I'm just chilling in the bullpen, and all of a sudden, Holland gets into some trouble after the rain delay, and they're like, Ranaudo, you're in. I'm like,
So I quick get all my stuff, and I'm like, I quick get out there. I had a meltdown on the mound. I had the worst outing that I'd ever had in my whole life. I had 5 walks in less than an inning. I only got 2 outs, and they took me out of the game. Oh. Got booed off the field, all that stuff. I go back to my phone, I'm reading Twitter, and everybody's like, just for context, Clayton Kershaw's pitched 94 innings this year and has walked 4 batters. In 2 1/3 tonight, Anthony Ranaudo walked 5. So I was like, awesome. So, of course, that night, I get demoted after that game, right? I get demoted down to AAA. I drop. So it was Dallas to Round Rock. I drive 3 hours to Round Rock. Yeah. I get to Round Rock, no joke, unpacking my stuff in my locker, in the GM calls from the Rangers, and I was like, at this point, I had such a bad outing last night. I was like, am I released? Like, I thought they were going to take me off the roster. Yeah. I was like, I still have options. I don't think they'll do that, So I'm like, hey, John, what's up? And he's like, hey, man, I know this is weird, but I just want to let you know we made a move after last night's game. I think, the time has come and all that. So we made a move to send you to the White Sox. And I was like, John, you're effing with me, right? Like, there's no way. Like, I just pitched against them, had the worst outing of my life. Like, you're messing with me, right? He's like, no, man. He's like, they've been calling about you for 2 months, and I wasn't ready to give you up or whatever, and I kind of wanted to see where you fit in with us. And he's like, but after last night, I don't want to do that to you. And if they want you still, like go there and have a fresh start and all this stuff. So I literally was like, all right. So I packed up my stuff, and I got sent to AAA Charlotte, and I'm walking into this clubhouse where all these guys are like, this is the guy that just imploded on the mound. So I was like, wow, so baseball is such a business. It's so funny how it goes, but I think it provided a lot of context for me for later on in my life for sure.
That is.
Yeah.
What wild. Fantastic stories, man. Love that. All right, let's take another quick break and talk some business on the other side. We would like to thank Mbd Automation for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. Mbd Automation is a mechanical install contractor with a program-centric focus. So what do these guys do? They install conveyor systems, VRCs, platforms, singulators, sorters, and all sorts of other types of automated equipment. Who do they work for? They work for systems integrators, manufacturers, and end users in fulfillment centers, airports, mail processing facilities, and projects in the defense industry. Mbd Automation works for numerous Fortune 500 companies across the United States and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. If Mbd Automation can help you on your next project, you can find them online at mbdautomation.com. And we are back with Anthony Ranaudo. So, after the White Sox, you actually played a little Korean ball.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, sold out, took a contract over there.
Yeah.
Made a little money. It was a great experience. People were awesome, but took a line drive off my hand. It actually ended my season out there, came back, had surgery, went back to LSU and graduated. And I
Sports management?
Sports management, yeah, with a minor in finance or in commerce, they call it, or whatever there. Yeah.
So you're starting to head into the next segment of life, right?
Yep.
Sports careers is you've run that. So what was next for you?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what was next. I was, like most athletes and stuff like that. So I did the thing that most guys do and stick to their sport and did lessons and all that. But I took it serious and had a good time with it. But I noticed that a lot of the kids were asking random questions and what it was like to pitch in the big league. So rolled that into a podcast where I could, reach a broader audience and have different guests on and talk about different things. And that led me to my next venture.
When did you start the podcast?
That was January 2019.
So it's the Up and In.
The Up and In show, yes.
And so how many episodes have you done?
We're about at 100, but sports, business, inspiring stories. So, I say sports performance, or I say business performance and inspiring stories. Yeah, it's kind of like our journey. So I can interview athletes, I can interview entrepreneurs. If somebody's done really just done something that's wild or recent, I can interview them. Yeah, cool stuff.
So how are you enjoying that?
It's unbelievable.
I think you got a voice for radio, for podcasts.
It's your guys' mics. These mics make me sound good. That's what it is. It's the equipment.
Well, so it looks like you're having fun with it.
I am, and it is. I get to be around people and that have done some amazing things, inspiring things. I get to learn things too. That's the thing that's fun for me. Is I think everybody's way of reaching success and what success is to them is completely different and unique. So I love enjoy seeing different perspectives of how people get there and do those things.
Yeah. And I can relate. I mean, I'm enjoying this podcast that I'm doing so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Be able to sit down with guys like yourself and just listen to stories is very cool.
It is, right?
So it's obvious you are too. So, so that you started in the podcast, you're still doing a podcast, and it seems really diverse. You mentioned sports, there's mental health, adversity, and training and discipline, and all sorts of different kind of guests on there. So it's I encourage our listeners to check that out. How are your numbers doing?
We're good. And honestly, like, it started off really well. And then when I opened up F45, so the podcast kind of led me to my first real business venture. I was interviewing people in sports performance, and I came across somebody that was opening an F45 gym. It's a franchise that was started in Australia. It was relatively new. And so I got into it and partnered up with two other former LSU baseball guys. And we opened that. And so that was my first real taste of, because I had made some angel investments along, throughout my career and stuff like that, but you're just an investor at that point. Right. But this was hands-on. I actually was in the DNA of the business, and it was fun. So that was my first real business venture.
What does the 45 mean? What is the what do y'all do different than another gym? Yeah,
so F45 has some proprietary IP with the way that they display the workouts on the TV and the way that the workouts are made. So every day when we go in the gym, we just turn the TVs on, and F45 TV has a new workout up every single day. And so technically you wouldn't even need a trainer. Our trainer kind of walks around just to make sure form is good, nobody's getting hurt, everybody's safe, that kind of stuff. But it's all class-based. The F stands for functional. 45 stands for 45 minutes. So it's functional movements in 45 minutes. You come in at a 5:15 class. We do a 2.5 minute or a minute intro, like to show the exercises in that day's workout. We do a 2-minute warm up, and you do about 38 to 41 minutes of actual work, and you're out the door in 45 minutes.
So how do you like those workouts?
It's the only workout that I do nowadays. It's one of the things that for me as a busy entrepreneur, somebody who understands fitness and wellness is important. I don't want to think about making my own workout anymore. I did that for 15 years playing baseball, every single day. So it's nice. I come in, I don't think about it. I just see my workout. I have all my weights here. I can work out with a 65-year-old woman because there's 15 different weights in our station, and I can do what's right for me. She can do what's right for her. And the trainer can come around and do a regression for her or challenge me with a harder one or something like that. And F45 is just a great community. It started in Australia, and it's starting to make its way over here in America, and everybody, it's a great community.
So you have 2 gyms?
We have one, and we're getting ready to open up the second one this weekend. Yeah. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So is the weekend the 19th?
I think so.
I've lost, but I think it's this weekend. Yeah.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
So, same partners?
Same partners, yeah.
And do y'all have plans for growth beyond this?
So we originally wanted to open up 3 to 5, and we think that there's one more prime location. But what we've seen is there's just, we're happy with where we're at. We don't really want to push it, and we're, entrepreneurship's a lot of work. Yeah. So I think what we're realizing is as we all change our lives and different things change, right? Like one guy's married with kids and he's got his own life. The other guy just is getting ready to get engaged. So everybody's at just different phases of their lives. And so we're going to take baby steps.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Man.
Yeah.
So I was curious if you had, in doing this, opening this gym and learning this program, if you look back on anything that of what you've learned about, doing these training, this exercise, and if you look back over your careers, like, could that have helped you in any way with your injuries? And I'm butchering the question.
No, I know what you're asking. And it's funny that, one, physically, F45 not only has shown me a lot of things about my body and movements and patterns and things like that it was wrong in baseball, but I think just the mental side of it, the business side of it, no joke, we opened this gym on March 12th, 2020. 5 days later was COVID. No joke. So we were lucky we got 5 people in, but then as a businessman, I'm like, what do we do now? My gym is now, like, what? Like, for 3 months, I just sat, so it teaches you a lot about adversity, and that's what baseball was, right? And so my whole career, I was always trying to rush through the minor leagues and thought I needed to be in the major leagues and make 100 million and be a Hall of Famer and all that stuff. And so I think with entrepreneurship, I'm just taking the approach of truly trusting the process. And so little things like those types of grinding moments, or when we're not hitting our numbers where we need to be, or we only have X amount of followers on YouTube or subscribers on YouTube and stuff, like the perspective that I have is, well, one day we're going to be where we want. So let's enjoy this moment now. Let's really enjoy the process of while we have 3 people on our team versus when we have 200 someday, you know, and just that perspective of that I never had in baseball, I think allows me to stay present day to day, have better relationships with my employees. And ultimately, I think just run a better business, you know, and create a healthier culture. So I think the mental side of it was what I took most, you know, from baseball and how I'm applying it to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, what to do and maybe what not to do.
What not to do, I think,
that is fantastic.
Yeah.
So your next gig, I think, was born maybe during some of your COVID downtime.
Exactly.
Tell us about Cards and Culture.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that I realized when COVID hit and we were stuck at home with the gym, I was like, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and a lot of people say a lot of similar things where when the economy goes down or whatever, right, different things happen, there's always an opportunity. So I was just looking for that opportunity, and I think it happened pretty organically. I was just selling some basketball cards, trading them, and at the time there was no sports, so it was like the gambler's fix, and the market went crazy. The Last Dance went, you know, everybody was watching that for 10 weeks straight and buying vintage cards and things like that.
Oh, really?
And so I made some weird amounts of money with these basketball cards. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But how is that a business, right? And it's eventually going to deflate and come back down to normal. So one of my artist friends, I was like, hey, man, could you do, I commissioned him for 3 paintings. I was like, I'll give you $1,000 each painting. But they're going to be these 3 iconic basketball cards that are really famous right now on, you know, in trading card world. I put them on our website. In a day, they sold for $3,000 each. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. There's something there where you can, you know, this is a collecting culture. And so you can spin off so many different things in this way. And I was like, I got a podcast. I like collecting things. I can make money with cards, sneakers, art, and like collectible like figures and stuff like that. So that'll be the revenue. I'll have a spot that I can invite people in for podcasting and multimedia and YouTube streaming. And we can stream card breaks. We can do video games, and we can change the way that athletes interact with their fans, right? It can be in hosting or a community gathering spot for athletes where it's an enjoyable experience for them to come sign autographs or come meet their fans and play a video game, you know, as their appearance or whatever. So as the NIL matured, I was like, there is a ton of opportunity here. And then obviously NIL came to fruition a lot faster than I thought it would have. But that was really the premise of what made me actually want to like start Cards and Culture and not just have like a side hustle flipping business, you know?
That sounds fascinating, man. That sounds so cool.
Yeah.
I saw some cards online. They're Topps cards, the new thing. What is it? Program 70?
Project 70.
Project 70.
Yep.
What in the world is that?
I think it's built for Cards and Culture because it's a little bit of mix of both. So basically Topps, the trading card company, has been around for 70 years. So this year they started a project where they hired, I can't remember how, it might be 70 artists. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they hire a bunch of well-known artists, famous artists, and they say, hey, here's 20 players, and we want you to create an art card, basically. And so it's their rendition of like the way that this athlete expresses himself, his city, his fan, like all these different things. And I just thought it was the coolest thing because from a value perspective, right, maybe you're collecting the art from the artist, but then it's also, they picked like really famous baseball players and stuff like that. So you have the appreciation of the athlete or that athlete's market too. So for me, I just thought it was such a cool way for artists to express themselves, but sports to create or mix in with culture, you know?
It is. It's just unbelievable. It also strikes me that that it's appealing to a more diverse market.
Yep.
So, you know, when you were like if you look at a 6 or 8, 10-year-old kid now, they have so much experience with animation and digital content, and would they really gravitate as much to a traditional baseball card that we know of growing up versus this new Topps product? And I can understand that. It's first glimpse, it's like, oh my God, what is this?
Right.
You know? But didn't Topps recently buy out one of the major trading card companies? Fanatics
actually got the rights to the trading cards for football, basketball, and baseball starting in 2023. So Fanatics actually bought Topps. Okay. That's what it was. Yeah. So Topps sold to Fanatics knowing that they lost that license and Fanatics would have it. So Fanatics bought Topps for the manufacturing purposes and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So how, it seems like you would really be enjoying this new venture. How is it like running that business? It seems very diverse and very different from a health club, but how is that working for you?
It is. It's very, see, with F45, you know what you're getting, and it's consistency every single day. I love that. The reason I love Cards and Culture is because it's innovative and it's almost something new every day. And that's the fun part, is there's new markets, new trends, new things. And it's like competition almost. You got to keep up with it, but at the same time, stay in your lane and understand what you're good at and things like that. So the collector's mind is really interesting to me, and that's what we kind of play on. So we follow the trends and the attention and things like that, and we try to dip into them at strategic times. And that's why we've even dipped into digital assets and innovating in the way that you're talking about. Is younger generations are used to content being different, so they're going to want their memorabilia and their cards in a different way. And that's why I think Cards and Culture is so exciting, because it's innovating.
Oh, man, it's just like there's no telling where that could go. So digital assets, is that the NFT stuff? What in the world is that?
So NFT itself stands for like non-fungible token, where you're like, but honestly, I think it's the technology that is going to be lasting. And that's why I'm playing in the space. Is, again, the attention is there. So this is a good opportunity to learn. And if you can time it right, we've made some good money on these NFTs, but I don't think same thing we talked about earlier with TikTok. It's the technology that's going to be lasting. So I think NFTs are actually built for like verification, ticketing systems, membership passes, things like that. And then I think those NFTs become collectibles in the future, the same way that if you had a 1949 World Series ticket in a case and it was graded, you might value that, or somebody a little older might value that as a memorabilia piece. The ticket to the Travis Scott concert, 20, 40, 50 years from now might be valuable to somebody that bought that and was at that event, and make that connection. So I think it's more the technology that I'm interested in, but it's so crazy how it is playing on the collector's mindset. So that's why we're in it.
And people will pay real money for the right to like if you have a piece of art, a picture, a painting, and they're like buying a small part of it, but then they have the right to display that digitally.
Yep. There's so many different variations of it. So again, it's the technology. So what you're saying is just one way to do it. So imagine that painting right there behind you and gridding it out to 10,000 little pieces, right? And you put that in a collection like a puzzle, and people grab them, hold them, and that's one way to do it, like a fraction of a big painting, and you have a piece of this painting, But again, I don't know if that's the one that's going to last. I think it's more for if you're wearing an expensive watch, and when you buy it, instead of getting a receipt, you get an NFT, and it's a certificate of authenticity almost, and you buy it from the dealer, or whatever, the Rolex dealer, and that goes into a vault, and you can display your Rolex. You don't even need to own the Rolex, or whatever. I mean, you own it, but maybe it's vaulted in a museum or at their place, and you have this digital certificate showing your watch collection and how much it's worth and how many are in it, and you can trade it with friends and things like that. But it's all backed up in a vault somewhere where somebody's holding on to the actual physical asset.
That is fascinating. So you've mentioned some of your passive investments that you made throughout the careers. You mentioned Marucci. You got in that. They were recently purchased, maybe in the last 12 to 18 months?
Yep. It was sometime during COVID, yeah. So I think they made a $200 million exit. It was nice.
Yeah. What a fantastic story for a Baton Rouge business. And you had a good exit on that?
I did, yes. Well? I was lucky. I got in on the initial seed.
Really?
Yeah, in 2013, which was nice. It was at the end of their initial, it was literally the last couple places that they had in the round, and I knew somebody there and was like, hey, we're closing out this round, there's still a little bit, and I was like, okay. And so I contacted my financial people. They didn't let me put as much as I wanted to in, but still got involved, and it was awesome.
You've done a couple other things that I read about, Diamond Nation, What is that?
That's actually a huge training facility up in New Jersey. So when I was, what we talked about earlier, after my sophomore year of high school, when I started going to get some serious baseball training, I went up to this bubble in Flemington, New Jersey, an hour and a half away. And one of the only other high school first rounders in New Jersey to ever get picked, his dad created this bubble. He's a tax attorney, and so he invested in this indoor thing for him and his son and his other sons. He had another son that was a first rounder too. And so I went up there and I was just starting to train and that kind of stuff, developed a relationship with him. When I signed, he did all my taxes and everything. And he was like, hey, that bubble that we started, we're actually expanding it. It's going to be a softball facility. Jenny Finch is going to come on, blah, blah, blah. We have all these plans. So he showed me the plans and I was all in on it. I loved it. So it was one of my first investments. And that's been, I think it's probably valued more than Marucci is, way more than Marucci is right now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a huge thing in the Northeast.
And I know you've done a couple of things, but I was intrigued by your real estate and land development interests, and you've had a couple of investments in that sphere. Yep. So how do you like that?
You know what? I'm not doing too much real estate anymore. I understand it and I like it, but I'm a little bit more hands-on, right? Like, so it's good and it was nice.
Slow play.
Exactly. And so I bought some land in 2017 and in the hopes to develop it with somebody, and he was going to get the financing and I was going to be the land, provide the land. But he struggled to find the financing. So we never actually got the project off the ground, and I wound up selling the land to somebody else who developed it. So again, not a great experience, but it was good learning experience for sure.
I can tell from your personality how much excitement you get out of the cards and culture, where that makes a lot of sense to me. But similarly, one of the other interests you mentioned to me is crypto.
Yes.
And just as we start to wrap up, tell me what it is that you do with that, or what do you plan to do with that in the future?
Well, what got me into crypto was the NFTs, honestly. So NFTs are all built on the blockchain. And so in order to buy an NFT, I needed to buy Ethereum. And once I understood of like, oh, okay, Ethereum is a coin just like, I don't want to say like a stock, but it operates similarly. And then you take that Ethereum and it has application and you can buy things with it and use it. And so to me, that was really interesting. And then obviously the fluctuation of the price is interesting and how that affects the value of the things that you're buying. So that really just got my brain going on it, which got me into like understanding the utility of all these different coins and where they're going and how we're going to use it in the future. So for me, it's another thing that I'm just dipping my toe into and trying to learn because I think that it could be useful in the future, and I just don't want to miss out on that. So it's fun and it's exciting, and I've been lucky. I don't know if lucky, but made some money on it, so it's been good.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
So when you look out 5 or 10 years, what do you see yourself into, or what's your vision?
I'd imagine I'm still working out at F45. I would probably say we probably sold the 3 locations. I think that was in our business plan, 5 to 7 years, something like that. Build out 2 to 5 of them and sell them to a VC firm or something. We're back to F45. But I think cards and culture will expand. I think that the model that we have here is great for LSU, but I think it's actually built for bigger cities and things like that. So if I can build out the multimedia side of things and prove concept and maybe potentially take on strategic investors and things like that, I'd like to take it to a bigger city and see how it does in a Chicago or a Houston with a strategic athlete like the way I am at LSU. Maybe somebody in Chicago or a former player that can be at the shop, and has a big name in that area, I think would be really, really cool for me. So developing the media side and running the cards and culture expansion. Yeah.
Anthony, that sounds like an exciting vision for sure. Look, I appreciate you coming in. I have enjoyed your stories so much. I wish you continued success, and thank you, sir.
No, thank you. I'm sorry that I talked so much. This was really fun for me. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I think you could probably imagine how much I enjoyed those stories. Anthony was just wonderful. Those stories of his career and his first win as a major league pitcher and striking out his childhood hero against his dream team. It was just too much. His stories of the trading and the minor leagues, it was just all fascinating. I just loved it. But when you get to the business side of Anthony, it's really, really interesting. If you guys can check out his online content, it's really, really cool. He's having a bunch of fun with his podcast, as we mentioned. But I love in his business how he is chasing new technology. And maybe gaining an understanding of, where it is now, but appreciating that it can be used for different purposes as that technology develops. So you can tell how much he's having fun with cards and culture, and we wish him continued success in everything that he does. I love his vision for the future. So we appreciate Anthony coming in. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur Podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.